Never shall innocent blood be shed, yet the blood of the wicked shall flow like a river. The three shall spread their blackened wings and be the vengeful striking hammer of God. You people have been chosen to reveal our existence to the world. You will witness what happens here today, and you will tell of it later. All eyes to the front. You must watch, dear. It'll all be over soon.
Now you will receive us! We do not ask for your poor or your hungry. We do not want your tired and sick.
It is your corrupt we claim.
It is your evil that will be sought by us.
With every breath, we shall hunt them down.
Each day, we will spill their blood till it rains down from the skies.
Do not kill, do not rape, do not steal. These are principles which every man of every faith can embrace.
These are not polite suggestions. These are codes of behavior. And those of you that ignore them will pay the dearest cost.
There are varying degrees of evil. We urge you lesser forms of filth, not to push the bounds and cross over into true corruption, into our domain.
For if you do, one day you will look behind you and you will see we three. And on that day, you will reap it.
And we will send you to whatever God you wish.
And shepherds we shall be, for thee, my lord, for thee. Power hath descended forth from thy hand. May swiftly carry out thy command. So we shall flow river forth to thee, and teeming with souls shall it ever be.
In nomine Patri.
Et Filii, Spiritus Sancti. How far are we going to take this star?
The question is not how far. The question is, do you possess the Constitution, the depth of faith to go as far as is needed?
Hey guys.
Hello.
Hello.
It's been another week, and it's my turn again. So we're returning to some William Gouge, a Westminster Assembly member who produced this book in 1622. At least this copy is a 1622 edition of his book, Domestical Duties.
Don't tell me that he was writing about the same stuff that we're talking about these days.
Yeah, the truth really
How
doesn't
men and
show.
women relate, what men should do, what women should do. Surely they had it all figured out back then.
Yeah, well, they had something, they had the authority and power to carry it out. That's something that's presently lacking in today's society.
Question, Nick.
Yeah.
That's lacking. Do you think also that there might be the will to execute it on the part of men lacking?
Oh, yeah. They've been, yes. There was that then too, back then, but it wasn't as bad. But it was then too. You had men that weren't willing to execute it. But it's also we've been raised under a environment that's just the under gynocentrism or feminism, where you basically have to apologize for anything masculine. Anything masculine is toxic. Patriarchy's evil. Women need to do everything, and a man can do it and can do it better.
Well, I was just going to say the reason I ask is because I think Gouge gives men permission.
Yeah.
I approach it from a different standpoint. The fact that this document exists means that men were struggling with this issue in 1622 and needed some instruction and direction. Okay, here's the proper way of doing it. Okay, same story today, these days. Men need proper instruction. Here's what you can do, how you should do it. Here's the nature of men and women, what works, and who's providing that proper instruction today. Well, it's a red pill. The problem, okay, we're red pill guys. Yes, red pill's the best you got. Sorry, it's the best you got. But most of the red pill stuff is not coming from a biblical perspective. Whereas William Gouge is providing similar instruction as you would find in the red pill, but his instruction is more grounded in history and in biblical and Christian principles.
Right. And today, a lot of the church, they eschew anything based on nature and creation. That was not the case in the church up until like the 20th century. I mean, over and over again, they ground things in, tradition, nature, and tradition's kind of a reflection of nature, and also the Bible. So just kind of going back to what the church used to teach, and the red pills kind of picks up some of those truths that have been forgotten by the effeminate church that has been compromised with egalitarianism and feminism and complementarianism. Call it the complementarian compromise.
Hold on. My mind is going down a different track. Yes, I don't disagree with you, but liberalism, in many ways, where we're at today is based on male decisions of liberalism, which gave the leeway to the women to promote their agenda. So we can't we can't just leave out the concept of liberalism as a separate entity from feminism.
Okay, you're also using liberalism in a different sense that I would classically use liberalism, but whatever.
Anti-logos, anti-hierarchy.
Okay.
I get to decide myself. Men want to decide themselves. They don't want to put themselves under an authority, a moral authority. Men want the free will to defy God and do whatever they want too. In addition, women absolutely want that. Men kind of absolutely want that too.
Yeah, but they're still held accountable mostly. They may want that, but
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. A man left to himself will still be accountable to himself in his morality. A woman left for herself, it's a different story there. Different outcome.
all right. Well, we left off. I'm gonna turn my camera off just to so it doesn't distract me from reading this. I only got one screen today. So we left off on domestical duties. We finished point 8, which was back up here. A wife's base esteem of her husband. And today we pick up point 9 of wifely duties of wife-like sobriety. Again, this is in the old Roman script, so a lot of your what you think is an F is actually an S, and there's other things as well. And some of the V's look like U's. So, a wife's outward reverence towards her husband is a manifestation of her inward due respect of him. Now, then, seeing the intent of the heart and inward disposition cannot be discerned by man simply in itself, that the husband may know his wife's good affection towards him. It is behooveful that she manifest the same by her outward reverence. A wife's outward reverence consisteth in her reverend gesture and speech. For the first, that a reverend gesture and carriage of herself to her husband and in her husband's presence beseemeth a wife, was of old implied by the veil which the woman used to put on when she was brought unto her husband, as is noted in the example of Rebecca, whereunto the apostle alludeth in these words, the woman ought to have power on her head. The cover on the woman's head, as in general, it implieth subjection. So in particular, this kind of subjection, these a reverend carriage and gesture. But most expressly is this duty set down by Saint Peter, who exhorteth wives to order their conversation before their husbands, so as it to be pure with reverence. Ooh. So guys, the head covering here is important. It
Yes,
implies
it's an
subjection
outward
and
act.
reverence. Yes. Why does the church reject the head covering then?
Because the head covering implies submission to not just the church, but to other men.
Oh. Well, it's subjection to their husbands, but also before God in view of the angels, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Right. So it's not sufficient for a woman to submit herself to the church. And I would strongly argue that most of these complementarian women who claim that they submit themselves to their church in that retarded triangle thing that they like to push, actually don't submit themselves to the church either, because when you look at their lives, they're raging whores 6.5 days of the week.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me turn this argument sideways. Can a woman submit to God if she does not submit to her husband?
No. Assuming she's married.
Assume yes.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's you're drawing near with your lips, but your heart is far from me. That type of
So
situation.
why is your answer no?
Because you're not living in subjection to God by being in subjection to your husband.
Why is that necessary?
Because he says so.
Who?
A, he says so, and B, the light of nature.
Who says so?
God says so in his holy word.
But in our modern age, we've learned that the Bible was written by just these old fuddy-duddy patriarch guys who were completely sexist and viewed the world that way. We have learned the truth now that men and women are equal.
So, my response would be congratulations. You've thrown out the Bible and you're no longer a Christian. Go worship something else.
What? If I hold this, you're saying I'm a heretic?
Yeah. If you reject scripture, I don't even know why you even go to church. I don't even know why you pray. It's all up to question if you reject scripture.
Well, can't I pick and choose which scripture that I want to adhere to?
Oh, so you're going to make a God after your own eyes and your own heart. Oh, that's idolatry, isn't it? Dang, that Ten Commandments.
I mean,
that's a hard thing.
Who are you to say that your interpretation of scripture is better than my interpretation of scripture?
It's 2 plus 2 equals 4.
Steve
doesn't change.
Steve, you're asking the wrong guy, because he actually is an ordained minister. He actually does have the formal authority.
Well, okay, you got that formal authority thingy going on, but God loves me just as much as he loves you. And I pray really hard, and I feel the Holy Spirit. And therefore, the Holy Spirit guides me in my interpretation. Just because you have more learning than me doesn't mean you're right and I'm wrong.
Oh, God. Sorry, Steve. I'm having PTSD flashbacks over here to a conversation with a family member. I'm not kidding. It was exactly that.
Oh, so their special experience of the Holy Spirit overwrites the plain teaching of Scripture. Congratulations.
Correct. No, I'm not kidding. Won't name the family member or anything, but I had this experience recently. They tried to tell me that the only way to find God was through feelings, and that I could not logic my way to God. It's not possible to logic your way to God. That the only way to really find God is through your feelings.
Feeling okay. Wow, this is like experientialism. This is a whole nother thing. The Holy Spirit's necessary, but also with the means of Holy Scripture and logic. Okay.
My goal was not to derail here.
You don't have to feel the tinglings, though.
Well, this person did have to feel them. But this same person would read everything. So we did all of part 1 earlier, right? They would read this and they would be aghast at the mere idea that any of these things were necessary. And this is a person who goes to church religiously, and not just Sunday. I'm talking the extracurriculars, right?
Okay.
Yeah. You know what? That take sounds like a woman's take. And my guess is that woman did not consult her husband.
Hey.
So then circle back to the first question I asked, can a woman submit to God without submitting to her husband. So you're saying this woman was wrong in her interpretation of scripture. It was based on, well, I'm assuming it's a woman. And since she thought she had divine guidance, she didn't listen to her husband, didn't ask for his interpretation. So we've kind of come full circle here, haven't we?
Yeah, except Plutarch, what I would do is show up with a buzzer with some hair clippers. Say, oh, that's your interpretation. Here we go. Let her be shorn.
Oh, Nick. Nick. Oh man, I don't need to
that's
die.
Paul, the Apostle Paul's logic.
I no, because so Steve, I have one addenda to your description.
Okay.
What makes you think the husband would stop this?
I know.
In the modern, even in the generic modern conception of husband, what makes you think consulting the husband would do any good? The modern husband would just go, "You do you, baby boo."
Okay. And I'll agree with that. Women cannot be disordered in their view of hierarchy without the men also being disordered in the same.
I would disagree. Well, I would disagree.
No, absolutely. You know what? If a woman doesn't go to her husband because he's a puss and a wimp and he doesn't correct her right, and he's lived his whole life allowing her to do this, you know what? He's got a lot of responsibility there too. Got to go back to Genesis 3, where Eve did what she wanted to, and then she asked for Adam, oh, you do this too, and he went along with it. Okay, in a matter, it's a matter of degree. Okay, not everything is exactly the same, but you cannot hold men as upright and say it's all the women's fault.
Men require this. My problem is that women will do it anyways.
Oh, right. Well, see, this is the problem that we're fighting here. We have an all of the above problem. Is Steve right? Yes. And is Nick right? Yes. So we have raised men to believe that not only is being the person that the women go to bad, we've raised women to believe that they shouldn't go at all. That they don't have to, that they can find God on their own they don't need no man to find God, even though God's hierarchy in the Bible is very explicit about that. Okay. So the situation now is such that, yes, Steve, I agree with you that a man who allows this to happen is not a good man. He is not fulfilling his biblical authority. I would also agree with Nick when Nick says, yeah, but how can he fulfill his biblical authority? Because he can't. And so men need to, they're going to have to start doing it. And that one,
guys, I tried. I became convinced of this when I was a pastor. And did my ex-wife now, did she ever comply? Once?
Of course not.
No, what did she do? Kept dyeing the hair, cutting it shorter.
Right. So there's only so much the man can do here. And what my view on this is, if, like in Nick's case, if the woman is continuing non-compliance, the godly thing to do, send her to the streets. Because at some point you run into the situation that Steve is talking about, where you as the man are co-signing on this, and therefore you do become culpable with her iniquity and her sin. And that, I think, is, is everything the man's fault? No. But at some point you do, as the superior in the relationship, you do become responsible for allowing this behavior to continue. And Nick, you got divorced. You're done. You're out. I honestly think you did the more biblical thing. I know divorce is bad, all that, But again, divorce has been weaponized against men. The Christian view of divorce has been weaponized against men to stop them from doing this, and then thereby forcing them to co-sign on bad female behavior. Like, the only
That's
winning
because the
move
church
is to
won't
not
conduct,
play.
because the church will not conduct church discipline. That's another problem as well.
Right.
That's the problem I came up with, is like, no,
So-
we're just going to allow all the women to do whatever the hell they want. And if you ever require anything of a woman.
So here's the current situation. We have, you got to admit, we kind of have weak men in general. And we have rebellious women in general. And the red pill talks about, oh, these women are out of control and they need to change. Well, yeah. Also, but the women will not change without having strong men to hold the women accountable. You can't expect women to change first without men changing. And if by miraculous means women did change, but men didn't, women would go back to being the way they are right now without that. Both sides have to change. Then next situation, yes, society is so bad right now. It's damn near an impossible task to have a traditional marriage, keep your woman in check, and have a happy, for her own benefit. I mean, have that good idealistic relationship, because society is always tempting her. The devil is always whispering in her ear. And no matter what Nick tried to do, the secular world and all the other yep in her ear, and the lack of support from the church in constant teaching and all that, it was an impossible task. Traditional marriage is impossible or near to it in a modern world.
Well, let's keep going. We're talking about the wife's sobriety towards her husband, and Gouge continues saying, the reverend conversation, that's behavior, consisteth in a wife-like sobriety, mildness, courtesy, and modesty. Okay, by sobriety, I mean such a comely, grave, and gracious carriage as giveth evidence to the husband that his wife respecteth his place and the authority which God hath given him. Sobriety in general is required of all women by reason of their sex, and surely it doth well become them all. But much more doth it become wives, most of all in their husband's presence. The apostle in particular enjoineth it to deacons' wives, yet not so as proper unto them, but in a further respect, appertaining to them not only as wives, but as the wives of deacons. That's 1 Timothy 3:11. Contrary to this sobriety is lightness and wantonness, which vices in a wife, especially before her husband, argue with little respect, if not a plain contempt of him.
Hold on. I want to say something here. He was talking about wives of deacons.
Yes.
Remember, this is 1622.
Right.
The Protestant revolt, whatever you want to call it, happened starting 1517. So priests, and prior to that, all pastors were priests. There was this office called deacon. So we're only a mere 100 years later. So when he's talking about deacons, he's talking about deacons were clergy. So in our modern understanding, you should read the wives of deacons or pastors.
He means it
right?
as no, it's a layman office. It's not it's an ordained office, but not as a pastor. So it's a ministry of mercy um, to kind of assist the needy in the church.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's a Protestant take,
And,
but
and in
a
the parish
pastor's
or that
a
area.
pastor's wife should act similar to a deacon's wife. Would you agree with
True.
that?
That's what he's.
Okay.
That's what. Yeah.
So that's my point. Pastors were not always married. Deacons usually were. It was an ordained office, not quite the stature of a pastor, but the wives of these male leaders were expected to be of higher stature than the common wife. And therefore, the same criteria should apply to a pastor's wife.
Right. And it should be an example to all wives as well. Right. So lightedness and wantedness, vices in a wife. Yeah. Objection. Thus shall all delightful familiarity between husband and wife be taken away. Answer. Though the forename sobriety be opposed to lightness and wantedness, yet not to matrimonial familiarity, which is so far permitted to man and wife, as if any other man and woman should so behave themselves one towards another as a husband and wife. Lawfully it may justly be counted lightness and sin. Instance the example of Isaac and Rebekah, who sported together, as Abimelech, knowing them to be such as feared God, gathered by that sporting that they were man and wife. For he thought that otherwise they would not have been so familiar together. He says, this familiarity argueth both liking and love, and showeth that the man and wife delight in one another's person. But the lightness here condemned in a wife is not so much a mutual familiarity with her husband by his good liking, as a wanton dallying with others to his grief and disgrace. Oh, so women were whores back then too. Oh, man. So they had problems with married people wanting to dally with people that they weren't married to, particularly the women.
Oh, that's a tale as old as time.
So it wasn't just the men that were that men are, told not to do this, but he actually told the women, no, that you should not dally with other men. You should not have this wantonness and lightness with other men. And in today's culture, how many women have guy friends and go out drinking, and then they have flirtations with other men
I
while
was
they're
just
married.
going to say that it's okay for a wife to flirt with her husband, but it's not okay for her to flirt with other men. Is that what this means?
Yeah, pretty much. It's okay to have that sporting behavior between husband and wife. But hey, guys, but don't they have guy friends? Isn't it okay to have that sporting behavior? Have
But
this
Nick,
lightness?
maybe it's just innocent flirting.
Oh.
Maybe it's just good evil.
Just good evil. I like the contradiction there.
Steve, my brain hurts just trying to comprehend that string of words you created there.
Hey, in the red pill, we talk about, hey, dread game, frame control. Hey, one of the red flags is she has a bunch of guy friends and how she carries herself among other men that aren't her family and aren't the guy she's with. Apparently, there's issues back then in William Gouge's day. I don't think they're anywhere near what they are today, but hey, he says, no, this is condemned. It's a sin. This is condemned in a wife. Oh, so the red pill and William Gouge, this patriarchy guy, agree. And yeah, those women, not worth having. And I'm not saying he would say you probably shouldn't wife him up if he's, I'm sure he would say that, but it's condemned behavior in a wife. And yet, how many guys tolerate wives like that today? Even Christian men, that they go out on these, you know, they go out on their girls' night out and they have their light behavior, or even in front of the husband, they'll have light behavior toward another man. And by the way, guys, I've even seen it in the church. So, moving on, if anybody else has anything to say, of wife like mildness. Mildness in a wife hath respect also to the ordering of her countenance, gesture, and whole carriage before her husband, whereby she manifesteth a pleasingness to him, and a count contentedness and willingness to be under him and ruled by him. Excellently is this set forth in the spouse of Christ, whose eyes are said to be as dove's eyes, her lips to drop as honeycombs, and she herself every way pleasant. Whereupon it is noted that she appeared to her husband as the bright morning, and that his heart was wounded with her. Assuredly, the clear sky is not more pleasant in the time of harvest than a mild and amiable countenance and carriage of his wife in her husband's presence. And though her husband should be of an harsh and cruel disposition, yet by this means might he be made meek and gentle. For the keepers of lions are said to bring to them some tameness by handling them gently and speaking to them fairly. Contrary to this mildness is a frowning brow, a lowering eye, a sullen look, a pouting lip, a swelling face, a deriding mouth, a scornful cast of the arms and hands, a disdainful turning of this side and that side of the body, and a fretful flinging out of her husband's presence. All which and other like contemptuous gestures are as thick clouds and overspreading the heavens in a summer's day, which make it very uncomfortable. They oft stir up much passion in the man, and bring much mischief upon the wife herself. Oh man, we've talked about contempt and disrespect, haven't we, guys?
We have. He's very descriptive. It's like he's experienced this.
You mean he had eyes to see and ears to hear? He could see what was in front of him and his parishioners. He could see what happened in society which he walked in.
It appears so. I mean, I've noticed behavior like this, especially since I, kind of joined the Manosphere Red Pill. It's been 15 years now, and I've been a student of human behavior. I have, and married twice. I have a lot of experience in observing women, like both my wives and other women. This happens. This behavior happens.
I like the descriptions. So, if you're on the lookout for disrespect, possibly contempt from your wife, and if you have contempt, you might be sunk. In the marriage, your marriage might be sunk once it comes to the contempt. But signs of disrespect leading perhaps even in the midst of contempt are a frowning brow, lowering eye, a sullen look, a pouting lip, a swelling face, a deriding mouth, scornful cast of the arms and hands, disdainful turning of this side and that side of the body, and a fretful flinging out of her husband's presence. Yep. But on the plus side, she must be willing to be under his authority, right? She must be content and willing to be ruled by him, under him as an inferior and ruled.
But Nick, Christian women shouldn't
Meek
have
and
to be
gentleness.
ruled because you know what? They're Christian. They're close to Jesus. Jesus is telling them what to do. They don't need to be ruled.
Oh, if they're ruled by Jesus and they'd obey him.
Well, if Jesus ever told them to submit to their husbands, they would.
Over and over
Maybe.
again. Oh, over and over. Yes.
But it's got to be it just come into her heart. Doesn't
Oh,
count to read it in the Bible. No,
well,
those are old
if it
words.
doesn't,
She needs new
well,
words in her heart.
well, if being in submission to her husband does not come into her heart, then chances are she has not been properly regenerated, born again by the Holy Spirit in submission to Christ.
Nick, who are you to judge her salvation?
I judge by the fruits, right? By their fruits you shall know them.
Okay, I'm kind of playing devil's advocate tonight. I am
Yeah, that's
throwing
okay.
out the arguments that are going to be thrown against you guys when you are confronting this issue. So, and I know Nick can handle them, and it's just fun.
All right, point 11, guys, of wife-like courtesy and obeisance. Courtesy is that virtue whereby a wife taketh occasion to testify her acknowledgement of her husband's superiority by some outward obeisance to him. That's like obedience, I guess. Rebecca, so soon as she saw Isaac, whom she had taken for her husband, lighted from her camel and came to him on foot, which was a kind of obeisance. This is not to be taken. This is not so to be taken as if no difference were to be made between the carriage of a servant or child and a wife, or as if a wife should bow at every word that she speaketh to her husband. Though in the kind and extent of many duties, the same things are required of wives, which are required of children and servants, because God hath made them all inferiors and exacted subjection of all. Yet in the manner and measure of many duties, there is a great difference. As in this, the obeisance of children and servants ought to be more submissive and more frequent. Yet, because God hath placed authority in the husband over his wife, she is every way to testify her reverend respect of her husband, and therefore at some times, on some occasions, as when he is going on a journey for a time from her, or when he returneth home again, or when she hath a solemn and great suit to make unto him, or when he offereth an especial and extraordinary favor unto her, or as I have observed such wives as know that beseemeth their place, that are not ashamed to manifest as such, when she sitteth down or riseth up from the table to declare her reverence by some obeisance or obedience, you could say. This cannot be this cannot but much work on the heart of a good and kind husband, and make him the more to respect his wife when he beholdeth this evidence of her respect to him. Yet it cannot but be a good pattern to children and servants, and a motive to stir them up to yield all submissive obedience both to her husband and to herself. For it may make them thus to reason with themselves, shall we scorn or think much to yield that to our father or master, which our mother or mistress thinketh not much to yield to her husband? Shall she bow to him, and shall not we much more bow to her? Thus a wife's honoring of her husband by yielding obedience to him maketh both him and herself to be more honored of others.
Well, here's something that I think we need to make clear here. We're talking about all these onerous things that a woman must do, and the man has authority. Well, what's not talked about here is the flip side. With this authority that the man has comes great responsibility and great duties. Those are not talked about here. I'm sure those are talked about. Gouge talks about those elsewhere. Now,
Yes.
the husband is not just owed this because he's the husband. Authority comes with great responsibility and duty that actually is higher or a greater burden than that which is on the wife. Authority is not as much a privilege as it is a duty and a burden.
It is a duty. Yeah, there's much more expected of superiors than inferiors.
So if this much is expected of the wife, there is much more that's expected of the husband. And that's pointed upwards towards God, not pointed downwards towards her.
Right. And part of this reverence, respect is a duty of the wife to her husband by that of giving obedience. As an example, because the household was husband, wife, parents, children, and masters and servants. So, there's the closeness of equality between husband and wife, but yet he's still the superior and she's the inferior. Yet, if those below her see that she does not obey her husband, does not respect her husband, will they be motivated to also give him respect and obedience? No, that's what Gouge is saying here. No, that is why it is paramountly important that the wife do obey and respect her husband. Because otherwise it gives leeway to mess up the rest of the household economia, or the household economy, or the hierarchy of the household. And also, and I don't know if Gouge notices this, but others around his era notice that if you don't have this setup in the household of wives honoring and obeying their husbands, the children tend not to respect also the husband, and therefore they don't even respect the rulers out in society. And so you have these vagabonds, you would say. You have these essentially these children that are just wild and submit to no authority, and they cause chaos in society. They become criminals and disrupt society.
Oh, not just criminals. People with an entitlement mentality. Do you notice that there seems to be a lot of that going around? People with an entitlement attitude. That's basically a lack of respect for hierarchy.
Yes.
Which is contagious to the kids, by the way.
That's the product of the single mommy household that got rid of daddy.
Yep. This is why young women and young men perpetuate this cycle. Because your children look at what mommy and daddy do, and if they see that mom rules the roost and that dad is just a plow horse, the young women are going to treat their men that same way. And the young men you create will accept being treated that way, even if it is not godly or biblical or any of that. Because that's what they saw. Kids ape what their parents do.
Yes. Therefore, you can't blame it entirely on the women, because they're the young women, because they're doing what they were taught. And the men are doing what they were taught. Both of them, both men and women, got it wrong. So you can't lay all the blame on the women. In some ways, you can lay all the blame on the fathers, but, fathers were once sons and were once raised by single mothers or weak fathers. So, again, it's perpetuating. But the change happens with one man doing his duty and taking charge. And usually that man is the father. I mean, yeah, he starts out by being the husband of the wife, but for future generations, it always starts with the father training up his children right. And the Bible has a lot to say with the responsibility of a father training up his children and disciplining his children properly. And disciplining should be mean training and raising, not punishing. I mean, punishment is a small part of it, but that's such a small part.
Right. Well, let's continue, Steve. And Plutarch. Contrarily minded are they who are not altogether who not only altogether omit this duty, but also gibe or gibe. I don't know. It's probably, y'all might can correct me, but Gibe. I don't know. Gib or gibe. I don't know. And scoff at the very hearing thereof of obeying their husbands, saying, "Thus wives shall be made no better than children or servants." But those scornful dames deride these outward evidences of their subjection. Yet such wives as fear the Lord ought not to be hindered thereby from doing their duty. For by such evil examples they might be discouraged from every good duty. It is sufficient that such holy women as trusted in God so behave themselves. But for this particular, we know that equal scorn, not upon occasions to perform this kind of courtesy in making obedience one to another. How much less ought wives, who are their husbands, inferiors? Okay, guys, I'm going to highlight this right here. Contrary minded are they who not only altogether omit this duty, but also give and scoff at the very hearing thereof, saying, "Thus wives shall be made no better than children or servants." Man, I hear this a lot today. Don't you guys?
Are you implying that feminists are contrary minded?
Oh, yeah.
No, Steve, how could that be?
Don't most modern women omit this duty of obedience, but also give and scoff at the very hearing thus and saying, "I'm not your servant. I'm not your child. You can't tell me what to do. You can't talk to me like that."
You're not my boss. You're not the boss of me.
Jesus is my boss.
Such abomination shall go straight to hell.
And I think one of the difficulties that men encounter when trying to correct this behavior is that the statement Jesus is my Lord is a true statement. And so the woman can just throw that at you. And as a guy, particularly if you have not been well trained, you know, I'm not even saying that I'm well trained here. Like that's, you know, like you need closer to Nick levels of training to be able to counter that. There is a counter for it, but it is not, it's not even, the counter isn't even widely accepted in the church. So again, this is where I look back at the men and I go, most men, yeah, I really feel for him, you know, like I look at him and go, yeah, I'm going to give you a lot of leeway on this because she's not making a false statement when she does it. She is absolutely putting herself out of order, out of hierarchy, doing so. And here's the thing, she knows she's doing that. When women say shit like that, they know what they're doing.
So I'll give this advice I'll give this advice to a non-Christian man married to a Christian woman. Buddy, you need to learn the Bible. Not telling you have to become Christian. That's your business. But you cannot let her pretend to have greater knowledge of this book and the wisdom in it than you have. So what you need to do is go back to Genesis 3:16. She wants to rule, she wants to be the husband, and he shall rule over her. Okay. That's the way it's going to be. Or that's the way it should be. Go to what? Corinthians, where the husband is the head.
1 Corinthians 11. Yeah.
Corinthians 11. What's that one? The husband was made first, and the wife was made from the husband.
Chapter 2. 1 Timothy chapter 2.
And then go to Ephesians 5.
Yeah.
The husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. Okay, there is all this hierarchical stuff in the Bible. Oh, and then you can tie it into the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 1. In the beginning was the Logos, was the Word. It says the Word. Word means Logos. Was the Logos, and the Logos was with God and was God. Logos is the order of the university, of the universe. It's hierarchy. Hierarchy existed from the beginning. So, guys, you need to educate yourself. Now, don't use this stuff as a weapon against your wife. Use it so you know what the authority should be. And then you can kind of laugh this stuff off. You can kind of throw it out there in a lighthearted manner, and you can keep your wits about you and keep your command presence. You don't need to, whack her over the head with the Bible and use this over her. You just need this to know who you are and rest as that solid rock in your own authority. And she's going to get hysterical, like the wind battering against an oak tree. Does the oak tree move? This may not succeed, but it's your only chance.
Think Plutarch?
No, I said what I could. You can keep going.
All right, let's keep going. Point 12 of wife-like modesty and apparel. Hey, Elena, if you're listening, this one's for you. Not to correct you, but with your current stats.
Nick, don't egg her on.
Okay. Modesty appertaining to a wife is much manifested in her apparel. St. Paul requireth this modesty in general of all sorts of women, but St. Peter presseth it in particular upon wives, whereas it well beseemeth all women. So wives, after a peculiar manner, namely, in attiring themselves to respect rather their husband's place in state than their own birth and parentage, but much rather than their own mind and humor. A wise modesty therefore requireth that her apparel be neither for the costliness above her husband's ability, nor for curiousness unbeseeming his calling. As a poor man's wife must not affect costly apparel, so neither ministers, grave counselors, sage magistrates, no, nor conscionable professors' wives, hunt after new fashions, or in light and garish apparel attire themselves. It is a token of great reverence in a wife towards her husband to have an eye to his place and state in her apparel. On the contrary, such proud dames as must have their own will in their attire, and think it nothing appertaineth to their husbands to order them therein, who care not what their husband's ability, or what his place and calling be, they shew little respect and reverence to their husbands. Such are they who are no whit moved with their husband's example. But though the man's apparel be plain and grave, yet the wives shall be costly and garish. Yea, many there be that stand in some more awe of their husband's sight, but show little more respect unto him, who have their silken gowns, beaver hats, and other like attire, not agreeable to their place and state, lie in the country, if they be of the city, or in the city if they be of the country, in a friend's house where their husbands shall not know it. And when their husbands are not with them, wear them and paint their faces, lay out their hair, and in everything follow the fashion. What can they which behold this think, but that such wives' care is more to please other light, vain persons than her grave, discreet husband? Or that her husband can nothing at all prevail with her, which is as it standeth, which as it staineth her own credit. So it leaveth a blot of dishonor even upon him. If the care of a wife were to give evidence of the reverence which she beareth to her husband, his desire and example would in this respect more prevail with her than the humor of her own heart.
Well, isn't she entitled to fine clothes?
No, as befits her station and place, as which pleaseth her husband, which does not destroy his pocketbook. And by the way, garish behavior and trying to, and it talks about women traveling some other place and changing the style of their hair and painting their faces and having clothes that they normally, since they're away from their husband, now they can change into their clothes that they really want.
This is
Sneaky,
all
sneaky.
theoretical, right, Nick? It doesn't actually happen.
Oh, this does happen. What do you think happens on girls' trips? What do you think happens when you have a father? We've talked about this before in our, I think, after a stream. What happens when a father finds this nasty apparel that his daughter's wearing to school? Is like, you're not wearing this. And she goes in her modest apparel to school. But little does he know, when she's away, she packed the clothes that he did not like in her backpack and goes to the ladies' room and changes when she's at school. Does this happen, guys? Yeah.
Honestly, Nick, I think most dads now will be, if they try that, they'll just be usurped by the wife. And what I mean by that is she'll just come out and say, no, this is fine for her to wear at school because all the other girls are wearing stuff like this. We've kind of left that more covert stage. And
that G-string, by the way, just magically appeared in her closet.
Sure. Yeah, mom. Well, that's because mom bought it for her. That's why it appeared, right? These see, and this is the thing. This is where I do get okay, men. This one is for you and for you alone. Where do you think she got the money for those clothes? Who took her shopping?
Mommy dearest.
Right, men. You have to look at this and think for half of a damn second how that shit ended up there. Okay? But we just don't think anymore, I guess. So these men, yeah, they get all up and think about how this looks from the child's perspective. Mom goes to the store, buys all the stuff that she tells me is really cute, and then dad comes home and says, "Nuh-uh, don't do it." Okay, that's confusing. But then mom comes back later and says, "Don't worry about it, baby. I got you. Just cover up for dad." Now we're an act of usurpation of the man. Okay.
This is what I would have done. This is what I would have done if my kids were old enough. I would have take the clothes. There's a place where you have a fire outside. I place them on the fire. Hey guys, we're having a fire tonight. Let's cook some s'mores. And then they come out, they see the clothes on the fire, put some gasoline on top of it, light the match, and throw it on.
Nick, that is an appropriate response, but these men have been so beaten into accepting female dominance that they don't even think about who brought this shit into their house in the first place. Like if that happened to me, there'd be a conversation in front of the child that mommy has sinned and will be punished for this in a way the child can see. This is not going to be good. The problem is any punishment I try to do is some form of abuse. Okay. So
yeah,
like that's the only way to deal with it, because the child needs to learn that mommy can experience consequences for misbehaving and sinning against dad and Jesus as well, because it's not just Jesus that she sinned against. It's the father, the man. And every time she steps out, he's talking about all these clothes and whatnot, and she puts on the gaudy fashions. She is sinning not just against God, but against the man himself. And I'm sorry. You have to end that shit.
Okay, Plutarch. If that situation happened and you had to call out your wife and punish your wife, would you enjoy it?
Dear God, no. I'd hate every second of it.
And I knew you were going to answer that way. That's what I want to point out. The man's duty and authority to discipline is not a wonderful thing. He does not like to use this. He does not take any joy in disciplining of the punishment type when it's required. It sucks. It really does. Men do not want to do this and are too reluctant to do it even when it's required. Yes, this wielding of power and authority is not fun. And you ladies think, oh, it's just all delightful. Bullshit. It sucks.
Well, and the other thing, here's the reason why I would do it anyway. Okay. Because I have seen in my life, in my family, what happens when men don't do it. Okay. Now, I'm not going to name any examples from my family, but I will say that you can open up any social media app ever created and find examples of exactly what happens. The married woman prancing around in a bikini. Absolutely, categorically, always unacceptable behavior. I don't care how
Totally
good you look. I don't care that that the man says he's okay with it. Just because
You're
a man
married.
says exactly. Just because a man says he's okay with something does not make that behavior good behavior. Okay?
Right. You're advertising to everybody else and saying, "Look at me," when that should be reserved only to your husband. You're advertising yourself, telling everybody you're a whore.
Right. Okay. So, how a woman dresses is a reflection on everybody in her life. Her mom,
Yes.
her dad, her husband, right? All of them. Now,
Yes.
people will say, and my personal favorite response to this is women, particularly young women, well, I'm not married. Ah, but it's still a reflection on your dad and your mom. When I look at a scantily clad single lady, I know she's not married. I go, okay, so what you're telling me is that your mom is a raging whore and your dad's a pushover, a worthless man.
And your behavior is like this. Now, you get married, your behavior is probably going to be the same.
Yep.
Okay. Now,
It's bad, guys.
this behavior in women does not lead to women being happy or content. This behavior in the woman belonging to a man does not lead him to contentment or happiness. It leads to disrespect. It leads to strife between the two. There is nothing good that comes from this. Oh, yes, she gets some temporary attention, and she gets the simps saying, "Oh, you're so beautiful." She has contempt for the simps that do that. That's not even, it's not worth anything to her. Oh, yes, it blows smoke up her skirt for about 10 seconds. That's it.
Yeah. I'm going to
She's not a
another
happy. What the woman displaying herself is not a happy woman.
Correct, Stephen. I'm going to attack another aspect of this that it's mentioned here. It's more overtly mentioned than what we're talking about is the dressing yourself with things that are above your place, above your station, and above your checkbook. Today, we live in an egalitarian society, so whatever. But I've noticed from like some of the poorest women to some of the richest women, they all have to have the Coach, the Louis Vuitton, the Gucci, whatever it is. They have to have all this expensive shirts, clothing, expensive shoes, handbags, accessories, the latest iPhone or whatever it is. Do you really need that? Did your husband know you're spending your money on that? Perhaps you're single. But are you of that station to really expect a man that can provide for that lifestyle? Most of you are out. You're deluded and placing yourself out of the marketplace to find a suitable man.
Here's another
Most
thing.
Men,
go ahead, Nick.
Go ahead. No, you're fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just going to say, one of the things that I love about what Gouge is saying here is that he is saying something that us men have been trying to say for years in the red pill. And that is how you dress and how you behave absolutely determines how we value you. Okay. Now, women have. I think the problem is women have taken that and interpreted it as the slinkier, sluttier I dress, the more you will value me, because the feminists have taught them that men value a sort of crass sexuality. That's not what we were actually saying.
Only
if
for
you
your
dress
husband.
like, well, if you dress like a whore, the man will treat you like a whore. Okay. What Gouge is saying here is, dress for your station. Okay. If you want the station of trophy wife, you have to learn how a trophy wife dresses. And believe me, it is not what you see on TV. TV is trying to guide you down a certain path, and that path is not trophy wife. Okay. Now, for the women, when I see and Elena and I, we've had this conversation because, as you guys know, she puts stuff up on the internet. Look at this whore. Look at how she dresses, right? And we've had conversations where, it's like Elena knows she. This is a wild one. He knows that she does not have to worry about the sluttily dressed women. Those aren't the ones she has to worry about because she knows how I view them. Right? They are for recreational use only. They are never going to replace her. She doesn't care about those women. She doesn't view them as a threat because she knows they're not. Okay.
They're not even tempting. Because
not really, no.
Holy shit. This woman isn't worth the energy. She's a walking disaster. I'm not going there.
Yeah. Hey, no, but sometimes when you call a whore, she still grabs your phone and puts her number in.
Well, okay. Sure, yes. But
do I call them? Hell no.
Right.
Okay, Donovan, I haven't watched a lot of Donovan Sharp lately, but I did watch a bit. Oh, must have been a short or something. And he said something that just illustrates this. Successful men may have played around and, seen a lot of 8s, 9s, and 10s. But when they settle down for a 6. A 6 with proper behavior. And Donovan was basically, I think he was reflecting on his life. Because, he was a bit of a player. I can see that. He's got the swagger for it. He can do that. But when it came to choosing a wife, did he choose the hottest wife? Oh, no. He chose the best woman, and she didn't have the highest level of beauty. She had more of a respectful demeanor, probably more peaceful to get along with, probably not expensive, high maintenance. You know what? And sexuality, probably just as sexual as those hotter women. Why would a high-powered man not want that? The man who wants the 8, 9, 10 and all that, he's kind of a superficial guy. Now, if you're an extremely beautiful woman, you can also cultivate kind of the girl next door attitude. Don't get high on your own queefs. And thank your God's gift to men and that you can use your beauty to level up. No. Use your demeanor. And the trophy wives of ultra-rich, successful men, well, maybe not ultra-rich, successful men often have some pretty peaceful traits of deferring to their man. Those are the successful ones. You're not going to see them because they're not out there flaunting their status. They're just in the background. They're living a good life and they're supporting their husbands. You just don't see them, but they're there.
Right. So I've actually met Devin in real life. And most of you guys have only ever seen her on camera. And not even very much at that, because she's just not big on that. And there's a reason why she's not big on being on camera. because she is in the real world a very quiet person. She defers to Donovan at all times. Okay, there's no question here. She does not speak unless spoken to, even to other men. Okay, and even then, she'll defer to Donovan on. I mean, she's not the expert. She's the wife, right? And she helps him quite a bit. In she was behind the scenes of that show that she did with Elena. She was making sure all the other girls were set up and that the microphones and like she was still doing that, right? Making sure that they were all, comfortable and, as a host, as a female host should do. That's just who she is. She's quiet. She's deferential. I never once heard her raise her voice. Did she? Okay, so we're packing up for the day. Did she remind Donovan that it was time to get on to the next thing because he was there for a short time and had multiple? Yeah, because Donovan can be a little bit of a big kid sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. Donovan, I love that about you. But she kind of, it's like, hey, and he was cool with it. There's nothing wrong with a gentle reminder that, hey, it's 4:30 and we've got to be headed out to the next thing, right? Nothing wrong with that. But she didn't say, hey, Donovan, we got to go now. Right? She didn't.
Oh, she had a reverent speech to her husband, which is the next point.
Well, okay.
So how does Donovan speak about her?
Very highly, both on and off camera.
Oh, ladies, do you want that? Do you want your husband to speak highly of you?
Another thing, guys.
As an example.
As we get to point 13, I want you guys to notice that this is Steve's 4 letters, three words, 4 letters, 3 things demonstrated in Gouge. I know it's kind of anachronistic, but the ideas are still there, and you could summarize them. Summarizing some of Gouge's ideas is reflected in this, the RSVP. You see, respect, sexual variety, kind of talks about it, not too much, but it's there in his book. And then what is this? Respect, and the thing that gives men the carriage gives them respect, but also not just sexual variety, but peace. Dang. Okay. Respect, sexual variety, and peace. RSVP. Coined from Seven Man. Steve Sandman. Okay, point 13. Of wives, speaking of Devon, of a wife's reverent speech to her husband. As by gesture, so by speech also must a wife's reverence be manifested. This must be answerable to that. For by words as well as by deeds, the affection of the heart is manifested. Oh, it's not just what she says, but also not just looking at what women say, but also what they do. Dang, another red pill truth in William Gouge. Okay, for by words as well as deeds, the affection of the heart is manifested. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. A wise reverence is manifested by her speech, both in her husband's both in her husband's presence and also in his absence. For this end is his presence. Her words must be few, reverent, and meek. First, few. For the apostle enjoineth silence to wives in their husband's presence, and enforceth that duty with strong reason in these words. I permit not the woman to usurp authority over the man, but to be in silence. The inference of the latter clause upon the former showeth that he speaketh not only of a woman's silence in the church, but also of a wife's silence before her husband. which is further cleared by another place where the same apostle enjoineth wives to learn of their husbands at home. The reason therefore mentioned for silence on the one side implieth a reverent subjection, as on the other side too much speech implieth an usurpation of authority. Interesting. Objection. Then be like a wife must always be mute before her husband. This is the Christian feminist and feminist hearing the response that you have today. Guess what? He understood this objection back in 1622. Then be like a wife must be always mute before her husband. He answers, no such matter, for silence in that place is not opposed to speech, as if she should not speak at all, but to loquacity, to talkativeness, to overmuch tattling. Her husband's presence must somewhat restrain her tongue, and so will her very silence testify a reverend respect. Otherwise, silence, as it is opposed to speech, would imply stoutness of stomach and stubbornness of heart, which is an extreme contrary to loquacity. But the mean between mixed both is for a wife to be sparing in speech, to expect a fit time and just occasion of speech, to be willing to hearken to the word of knowledge coming out of her husband's mouth. This argueth reverence. Elihu manifested the reverend respect which as a younger he bare to his elders by forbearing to speak. By the way, yet Elihu was the young man in Job, by forbearing to speak while they had anything to say. How much more ought wives in regard both of their sex and of their place? Contrary is their practice, who must and will have all the prate. You can think prattle. Okay. If their husbands have begun to speak, their slippery tongues cannot expect and tarry till he hath done. If, as very hasty and forward they are to speak, they prevent not their husbands, they will surely take the tail out of his mouth before he hath done. Thus they disgrace themselves and dishonor their husbands.
Okay, hold on. Right there.
All right.
My first marriage, that woman had disrespect and contempt for me. Throughout the marriage, she would, when I was saying something, she would interrupt and finish my sentences to a different point than I was making. The second wife, she didn't do that until the very end. When she developed contempt for me, she jumped in and would not let me finish a sentence, but would complete it for me in a wrong pointed way. So I think that's what he's talking about here. The women who will interrupt the guy, their husband, and not let him finish a thought. Oh, that drives me nuts. It provokes anger in me. Yes, I'm working on it. I've gotten better, but damn, you want to get me pissed off? Yeah, jump in and finish my sentences.
Good to me.
Elena got
Women-
barked at on Sunday for not listening.
Did she listen eventually?
Well, it ended up working out, but I told her to stop doing something, and she didn't stop doing it. It ended up working out, but it eventually turned into, I told you to stop, you didn't stop. And I got, well, but this problem and that problem was stopping. Yeah, okay, but I told you to stop, you didn't stop.
And so this is a common thing in women. Not just in 1622, but even down to this day, where women tend to prattle on and prattle on and prattle on over loquaciousness. And then it can get to a point where it's actually overt disrespect by talking over you and finishing your sentences. I'm not saying Elena did that, by the way.
No, she didn't.
Right.
She just didn't stop.
So to correct this behavior, guys, you have to keep in mind women are very sensitive to being corrected because they view that as a withdrawal of your love. So shortly after correcting them, no, I'm not allowing this. You cannot do this. Then you also need to assure them, I still love you.
Well, Gouge talks about this in his duties of husbands. He talks about dealing with wives and correcting them in the proper manner to do it. But that's not what we're covering today with Gouge. Even though we can comment about it like Steve's doing, that's fine.
Well, I just want to bring up that if you take all this as the only thing these guys ever talk about, and they lack compassion, they lack understanding of what the man's duties are or how to deal with this. No, we are just reading an excerpt. This isn't everything. Nobody can say everything all at once. So when you're expressing, and this is another frustration I have, when I'm trying to explain something, and this happens with men more than women, I get halfway through, they understand that, and they start arguing with what I do. And then by the time I fill them in on the rest of that, then they're saying, well, you were wrong because you didn't explain it and didn't blah, blah, blah. You didn't allow me to get to the end before you jumped in and thought you had enough information to spout off and shut the fuck up for like 10 minutes. If I'm an expert, basically I've thought about it for a long time, and you've just exposed to the idea, shut the fuck up. Listen. Try to understand their point before you jump in and start refuting it. I mean, this is common behavior in men and women, but
especially what they do. Sorry, Steve.
Go ahead.
Did you have more to say? Okay.
No, I'm done.
Okay. So what you also see is, you'll put this general concept out. You won't address every particular and every exception. But what do a lot of persnickety men do that want to be disagreeable and don't want to latch on to the general truth, right? And especially women. But this, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? And what about this particular extreme case? And so on and so forth. It's like, this is the general.
I have a quip for that. It's 4 words again. Yeah, but what if?
Right.
And then follow up. What? Yeah, but what if unicorns really do poop Skittles? Then everything you said is wrong.
I mean, so many of these. I'm glad we don't do it here on this on the Resurgence, because we understand general concepts, and we can understand when we don't want to get bogged down on the weird exceptions and particular points. But this is how conversations will a lot of times get derailed by a contemptuous wife, or a wife that's rebelling. You give the general, say, look, I need you to obey me here. I need you to have a proper attitude, blah, blah, blah. But what if this, and I'm not, and this, and this. And but this one time you did this, and this other time you did this, and da 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 da, and you circle around. It can go on for hours, guys. I would know by experience. It could go on for hours, and you're like, how the hell did we get down this rabbit trail when I asked for two simple things? It's the prattle and the over loquaciousness of women, also taught to their contempt and rebellion. It is not proper speech and reverent speech towards you. All right, I'm going to keep going. Point 14 of the titles which wives give their husbands. This is a good one. I have lots of fun with this one. As the words must be few, so those few words must be reverent and meek, both which are also implied under the forename word silence, which in the original signifieth also quietness. Reverence hath respect to the titles whereby a wife nameth her husband. Meekness to the manner of framing her speech to him. For the titles which a wife in speaking to her husband or naming him giveth unto him, they must be such as signify superiority and so savor of reverence. Such are the titles wherewith husbands are named in the scriptures. They are titles of honor. Such also are the titles with the church, who by our apostles made a pattern for wives in all subjection, giveth to her spouse Christ Jesus, as may be gathered out of the Song of Psalms. It is likely that Sarah did usually give this title Lord to her husband, for having occasion to think of him presently, this title Lord was in her heart, which would not so suddenly have risen up if she had not ordinarily used it. According to the usual titles which we give to any, do we in our hearts name them when we have occasion to think of them. Among other titles, the name husband, as it is in the most usual, so it is the fittest and meetest title. It intimateth the reverence and favoreth not of niceness and singularity, as these titles head, guide, master, man, and the like do, which though they be lawful titles, because the scriptures attributed them to husbands, and they signify superiority, yet because they are unusual in favor of singularity and savor of singularity, they are not so meet. Common use and practice hath made the addition of the husband's surname to this title, master, more meet. St. Peter by this argument proveth that Sarah obeyed Abraham because she called him Lord. Contrary are those compilations which argue equality or inferiority rather than superiority as brother, cousin, friend, man, and continuing. If a stranger be in presence, how can he tell by this manner of compilation that he whom thou speaketh unto is thy husband?
Hold
If
on.
he espy any, yes.
Can I add to those brother, cousin, friend, man? Can I add the word partner in there?
That's what I was thinking too, Steve. There you go.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I 100% agree. That was in my mind the whole time. Very good. Great minds think alike. All right. So in present terms, you can think of partner and other things. Okay, how can he tell by this manner of compilation to whom he speaketh unto is thy husband? If he espy any matrimonial familiarity betwixt you, what can he judge of it otherwise to be but lightness and wantedness? Remember the fearful issue that had like to have fallen out by reason of such compilations given by Sarah and Rebecca to their husbands, not unlike those are such as these: sweet, sweeting, heart, sweetheart, love, joy, dear, and such as these: duck, chick, pigs, pigs, I think pigsty or pigsy, whatever it is, and continuing husbands, Christian names as John, Thomas, William, Henry, and etc., which if they be contracted, as many use to contract them, thus Jack, Tom, Will, Paul. they are much more unseemly. Servants are usually so called. But what made me say of those titles given to husbands by his wife, not seldom in passion, but usually in ordinary speech, which are not fit to be given to the basest men that be, as grub, rogue, and the like, which which I am even ashamed to name, but that the sins of women are to be cast as dirt on their faces, that they may be more ashamed.
Hold on. What about the old battle axe?
Yeah, that's probably not
Oh,
a good name to give your wife.
the ball and chain?
Not a good name to give your wife.
Ah.
Even though it
Okay,
might be
now,
true in your circumstance.
do the men who give those names to their wives, are they kind of in retribution, well, cowardly retribution, to the way their wives treat them?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, well, if that's true, if a wife wants to be talked about in a very respectful way, and her husband talks her up among the public, maybe it's because she treats him well. Didn't we just talk about Donovan Sharp and his wife? Why does he speak so highly of her? Is it because of him, or is it because of the way she treats him? Her is she actually causing this to happen? In some manner, I would say yes. Oh, I have a lot of respect for Donovan because he's that kind of guy. But his wife makes it easy for him to talk her up.
Yes, there's duties of inferiors to superiors in light of their office, and there's duties of superiors to inferiors, regardless of sometimes how wicked the inferiors can act, and sometimes despite how the superiors even act. Both have the duty to, both must carry out their duty. Yeah.
Even when they don't want to. Although I will say that's easier for men than women.
Notice he talks about giving them proper names. When women speak about their husbands in modern day, this is kind of red pill stuff. Also, you can think red pill, or this is what the church should be doing, anyways. It's nature, and it's also, what the church should be doing. Do they ever refer to them in proper titles, the husbands, or is it when you catch a woman with talking about her husband, usually not in front of their husband? A lot of them refer to their husband as partner. They use terms of equality. And sometimes we'll even give them weird nicknames that kind of tear them down in front of others. This is much to be despised.
This goes further. You can see other examples of this. As a Catholic, I'll tell you this. There are certain priests that you have respect for. You call them Father, last name. There are others. Oh, that's Father Bob. Oh, that's Father Jimmy. Less respect. When Nick was a pastor, would you call him Pastor Nick? Or would a more reverent way or respectful way call him Pastor Barnes? I think if you are a pastor, you should set the precedent that people call you by your last name, that reverent tone, because it's unconscious. Oh, they may think, oh, you think you're better than me? Oh, who the fuck cares? No, you set the tone for the reverent side. You don't allow people to become too chummy, because that removes the level of hierarchy.
I don't do that. I let them call me whatever they wanted.
I know. I mean, it's a personality thing, but you do understand my point too, right, Nick?
Yeah, yeah. And that was probably one of my failings is I tried to establish that closeness, that brotherly love for the church and those under me. I didn't want to be too high-minded for them. I think it also worked against me. So,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not telling people this
no,
is
it's
a hard
fine.
and fast rule, but I would, even if someone was referred to in a casual way, if I interacted with them, I might use a more formal greeting or
Right.
acknowledgement, and it was a
I
sign of
think
respect, and that
I think
that
this is
seems to be effective too.
right. I think Steve, your point is well taken. I think that was probably one of my failings, and I, again, this is how deep the egalitarian deception has gone upon society and even the church. There's no respect for church office, but also part of it is the church is a lot of it's a synagogue of Satan, unfortunately. And so maybe perhaps the pastorate are it's so bad these days that they don't generate the respect that they ought from society because they're degenerate themselves.
And it's not respect for the person, it's respect for the office that they hold.
Correct, correct.
This
That's what
used
I'm
to be
saying.
common in
Egalitarian.
business too. You
Right,
never referred to your supervisor by his first name.
right.
It was always Mr. Smith. It was a sign of respect and honoring his office, not him as a person. It came from his office and his level in the hierarchy. It was a sign of of respect, I guess, of submission. Men don't really have a problem with the hierarchy. You see this in war. The sergeant says,
Right.
"Go do this," and the private doesn't say, "Yeah, but blah 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 blah. I don't think this is blah blah blah." Nothing. You couldn't win a war if you did that. Go do this. Okay, his word is the law. You just get it done.
I agree with Steve. We live in, again, that's my point. We live in such an egalitarian society. This idea of titles and respect is something almost foreign to us, unless you're in the military or something. It's very foreign. But it's actually according to nature, it's according to tradition, history, it's according to the Bible. There you go. All right, I'm going to continue here. Objection. Many of the aforenamed titles are titles of amity and familiarity. Answer. Subjection is the mark which wives are directed to aim in their thoughts, words, and deeds, and whole conversation towards their husband. By the way, conversation in these times, as you see also in the King James, the 17th century, doesn't just mean like their their speech, having a conversation one to another. It means their behavior as well. So their thoughts, words, deeds, and whole conversation, their whole behavior towards their husband. Such tokens of familiarity as are not with all tokens of subjection and reverence are unbecoming, unbeseeming of a wife, because they swerve from that mark. Again, their whole conversation includes their thoughts, words, and deeds, their whole behavior towards their husband. That includes the titles that what they call their husband, should be with that of subjection and reverence. And as they don't reflect subjection and reverence, they are unbeseeming of a wife because they swerve away from that mark, swerve away from that natural and biblical hierarchy. Yeah. I'll continue. Point 15 of wise meekness in their speeches. Meekness in a wise manner of framing her speech to her husband, doth also commend her reverend respect of him. This is an especial effect of that meek and quiet spirit which St. Peter requires of wives, which duty he doth strongly enforce by this weighty argument, which is before God a thing much set by. It is a wise meekness much set by before God, and shall not wives hold it both a bounden duty and comely ornament and grace unto them, as the form of some words which a wife useth in asking or answering questions, or any other kind of discourse which she holdeth with her husband, so her moderation in persisting, arguing, and pressing matters, yea, and the mild composition of her countenance in speaking declare her meekness. If she be desirous to obtain anything of him, fairly she must entreat it, as the Shunammite. If she would move him to perform a bounden duty, mildly she must persuade him. If she would restrain and keep him from doing that which is evil, even that also she must do with some meekness, as Pilate's wife. If she have occasion to tell him of a fault, therein she ought to manifest humility and reverence by observing a fit season and doing it after a gentle manner, as Abigail, who, as she wisely behaved herself in this respect with her husband in observing a fit season, so also with David by intimating his fault unto him, rather than plainly reproving him, when she said, It shall be no grief nor offense unto my Lord that he hath not shed blood causelessly. Causeless. This meekness requireth also silence and patience, even when she is reproved. Contrary is the waspish and shrewish disposition of many wives to their husbands, who care not how hastily and unadvisedly they speak to them, like I think that's Rahel, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
I think you're right.
I could be wrong on that word there. Nor how angrily and chidingly like Jezebel, nor how disdainfully and spitefully like Zipporah, nor how scoffingly and frumpingly like Michael, nor how
Michael.
reproachfully
Said Michael.
Mikhail, nor how reproachfully and disgracefully like Job's wife. If they be reproved by their husbands shall be reproached by them, and they are ready to answer again, not only word for word, but 10 for the one. Many wives, by their shrewish speeches, show no more respect to their husbands than to their servants, if so much. The least occasion moveth them not only inwardly to be angry and fret against them, but also outwardly to manifest the same by chiding and brawling. Interesting. The very object whereupon many wives usually spit out their venomous words is their husband. When their stomachs are full, they must needs ease them on their husbands, wherein their fault is doubled. Let
Hey,
wives
Nick, hold on.
yeah, All right.
Oh, hold, no, scroll that down. Chiding and brawling.
Ooh.
Oh, okay, hold on. And then spit out venomous words. Holy shit. This is bad stuff.
And by the way, it was
Nick,
many wives. Waspish is true in this
Manny.
position of many wives.
Okay. I'm going to make a confession here. My first wife used many venomous words. She actually beat up on me. She was actually arrested for assault. I had scratches on my body. She would use her fists. Okay. I was a man that was abused by a woman. Surely I'm not the only one.
Oh no, I was too.
What? Your wife brawled with you?
Yeah, she did.
Ex-wife?
Yes.
Okay, guys. This is more common than you think. Men withhold their anger. Oh my God. If you're provoked to the point where you react, which is a natural thing, I'm not condoning it, it happens often. Holy shit. If you can't control yourself and she's beating on you, you do anything, your life is over.
Yep.
But women can actually, and they do beat up on men all the time. Even soldiers, Marines have abusive wives who beat them up. This strong guy who will go out and kick ass and fight the enemy and kill people, he's being beat on by his wife and he's not doing anything about it. He can't do anything about it. This is common. This you Christians got to get this out of your idea that men are always the abusive ones.
Correct.
And women
And
are
we had
always the victims. That is complete and utter bullshit. And in fact, more women beat on men than men abuse women.
right. And remember, we had David Edgington on here. He has 2 books. So this whole paragraph can be reflected in his 2 books, The Abusive Wife and the other book, the new one, Reviling Wives and White Knights, or White Knights and Reviling Wives, something like that. You can go find them on Amazon or New Christendom Press. And he talks about this phenomenon. He's like, this happens and the church does not want to talk about it. Well, guess what, guys? This phenomenon is not only talked about in the red pill, but it's starting to come back up in the church. But man, it was here back in 1622 with William Gouge.
The reason I'm here and tell about some of the things that have happened to me is I want other men out there to know, hey, you're not alone. I've experienced some of these things. This is what I've learned. These are my failings in the past. And I'll acknowledge those. These are what this is what happened to me. You are not alone. Whatever you're experiencing and the difficulties in your relationships, yes, it's probably a lot more common than you think.
It's just been, it's Steve is absolutely correct. It's much more common than you think. You see it in history. The red pill talks about the church is starting to, in some circles, acknowledge the truth that they've forgotten. Okay, guys, you're not alone. And a lot of this has been tapered over by the feminist propaganda with all their studies. And they have this idea that men are bad and women are these innocent, sugar spice, everything nice, little angels that can never do any wrong. False. That's false. That's not reality. It's a fantasy. It's a myth. It's ignored. The truth is ignored and covered over by the studies of the government, the studies that they teach the DAs and police, and by Duluth family law, which assumes the guilt of the man. It's covered up in the media. This is reality, guys. And it was reality back in 1622. All right. Let wives therefore learn first to moderate their passion. Oh, that means they have to be restrained. Oof, that's kind of difficult today. Okay, let wives therefore learn first to moderate their passion, and then to keep in their tongues with bit and bridle. But most of all, to take heed that their husbands taste not of the bitterness thereof. No, not though they should by some oversight of their husbands be provoked. It is to be noted how Solomon calleth the jars which are between man and wife the contentions of a wife, whereby he intimateth that she commonly is the cause thereof, either by provoking her husband or not bearing with them. He's citing Proverbs 19, verse 13. Because, oh, this is true, not in my only William Gouge's own insights of his day. No, he's all saying, no, this is actually in the Bible. This is, for him, this is nearly, what, 3,500 years old? Yeah.
Yeah.
Point 16 of a wife's speech of her husband in his absence. This is something that I found out with some of my past relationships, especially my ex-wife, is I had no idea how bad they talk. Women can talk behind your back when you're not there. Beware of this, guys. The reverence which a wife beareth to her husband must further be manifested by her speeches of him in his absence. So did Sarah manifest her reverence. So must all such as desire to be accounted the daughters of Sarah. The church, speaking of her spouse, doth it with as great reverence as if she had spoken to him. It was for honor and reverence sake that the Virgin Mary called Joseph the father of Jesus when she spake of him. This showeth that a wise reverend speeches in the presence of her husband and to his face are not in flattery to please him and fawn upon him, but in sincerity to please God and perform her duty. Contrary thereof, therefore, to their duty deal they who in presence can afford the fairest and meekest speeches that may be to their husband's face, but behind their backs speak most reproachfully of them. Y'all have any comments thereof? Plutarch, Steve.
I see this as an extension of the clothing.
Okay.
It's in this same vein of do not dishonor your husband and therefore dishonor God by dressing improperly. This is much the same thing. Do not dishonor your husband and therefore dishonor God by speaking poorly of your husband. Right? Or you know what I mean? It's to me there are two sides of the same problem. Yes, women speak terribly about their men behind their backs. And I think it's because they don't even realize that that's what they're doing. That's what the group is doing. And so to be accepted by current group, I have to say these horrible things about my husbands. They might not even believe them because they're women. They might just say them just to be accepted by the group. But what I will say is that even if they don't believe it the first time, even if you don't believe it the 10th time, by the 100th time, you probably will. Because when you repeat words to yourself, you begin to believe them.
There's another aspect that I want to focus on. Have you ever been accused by your ex-wife of doing something behind her back?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so you made a decision, you acted on it. You didn't consult her first. She didn't approve of it. Therefore, you did it behind her back. Okay, when women have fights among others, other women, they are gossiping, they're destroying the reputation of their enemy, and they're always doing it behind their backs. Women always, this is a trait of women. They talk behind someone's back. And it's a sign of disrespect. And the women who do this to other women, okay, that's their frenemy. It's kind of a friend, but more of an enemy. They're doing it to tear them down. Men, if I have a disagreement with a man, I don't really tend to talk behind his back. I may mention some things, but my motivation is not to tear him down. Most of the time, I'll just ignore it or, okay, whatever. I'll distance myself. I don't need to tear him down.
No. Well, this is really interesting. My pastor's friends didn't realize this, that all this crap was happening behind my back with pastors' wives, friends that I thought were my friends, other Christian women in their little gossip groups, all behind my back, talking about how bad I am, how I do all these crimes, apparently, that, of course, I didn't do. How my desire to have relations with my wife was some sort of abuse, even though it was never forced.
It was a perversion, Nick.
I know, right?
You were a sexaholic.
Yeah, apparently. Anyways, but did I ever spread did I ever spread what was really going on in that marriage to anyone? Did I ever do it? No, not until as the proverbial shit hit the fan, and I was accused of all sorts of crap, thrown in jail. A lot of pastors and elders were writing evil things about me without knowledge. Then I started set the record straight, and my people were like, "Holy crap, you never told any of us about this." I was like, "No, I just wanted to. I didn't want to make the world know all my dirty laundry. I didn't want to have the world think evil of the woman I was married to. I covered over her faults." But did that happen? I had a sense of loyalty, and I didn't want to betray the one I was married to. But do women usually have that same mentality, even Christian women? I don't think they do today. And it's to their detriment.
Absolutely not. Even in divorce. Just listen to a lot of the divorce stories. Go listen to Terrence Pop, Redonkulous Regiment. Listen to Strong Successful Male in all those stories. Horrendous stories, both of them. Tell horrendous stories. And you know what you're going to find? Men always pull their punches. Always. And even after they've been greatly betrayed, they're usually not vindictive, and in fact will actually help the person who betrayed them if they're given just the tiniest amount of respect. Men do not want to destroy their ex-wives 95% of the time. 90% of the time, women do want to destroy their ex-husbands. Just such a marked difference in the behaviors here.
Hi, guys.
Plutarch, I'm throwing on numbers here. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, you're throwing out numbers, but only kind of, sort of. No, you're not wrong. I mean, but no one's really done any studies on these things either. Because why would you? Why would you want to go find out that men are far more magnanimous towards women than women are towards men? That doesn't support current narrative. So no, we don't go find out. And a lot of people say, but do you know how hard it is to find it out? People lie. And they say, well, men lie about it. And I go, well, yeah, women lie about it too. What's your point? Right? So we can't prove any of it, except we can, because the number of stories reported where men wail on their women are less than the stories of women beating men. We've just accepted that it's okay for women to do that because women are the weaker sex.
Oh, now
And
they're
men
weaker.
Well, I mean, they say weaker. They mean physically, of course, but that,
No.
and that's true. It's true, but women have for probably the past 30 years taken that as license to beat on men. Well, I can get away with it because I won't hurt him.
Let me point something out. Anecdotal evidence is evidence. It can't prove anything to the nearest percentage, probably not to the nearest 5%, probably not to the nearest 10 or even 20%. But a preponderance of anecdotal evidence does indicate a general idea, which can be, say, yep, this is the way it is. Is it 60%? Is it 80%? Is it 90%? Don't know. Can't prove that. But there's something here, folks.
There's something there, guys. All right, I got one last point, and then we can close off Gouge for not done with wifely duties, but just enough for today. Point 17 of wives' obedience in general. Hitherto of a wise reverence it followeth to speak of her obedience. The first law that was ever given to woman since her fall laid upon her this duty of obedience to her husband. In these words, thy desire shall be to thine husband, and he shall rule over thee. How can an husband rule over a wife if she obey not him? The principal part of that submission, which in this text and in many other places is required of a wife, consisteth in obedience, and therefore it is expressly commended unto wives in the example of Sarah, who obeyed Abraham. Thus by obedience doth the church manifest her subjection to Christ. The place wherein God hath set an husband, namely to be an head, the authority which he hath given unto him to be a lord and master, the duty which he requireth of him to rule, do all require obedience of a wife. Is not obedience to be yielded to an head, lord, and master? Take away all authority from an husband if ye exempt a wife from obedience. Contrary is the stoutness of such wives as must have their own will and do what they list, or else all shall be out of quiet. Their will must be done. They must rule and overrule all. They must command not only children and servants, but husbands also, if at least the husband will be at peace. Look into families, observe the estate and condition of many of them, and then tell me if these things be not so. He was a red pillar back in his day, guys. If an husband be a man of courage and seek to stand upon his right and maintain his authority by requiring obedience of his wife, strange it is to behold what a hurly-burly she will make in the house. But if he be a milksop, a milksop, and barely yield unto his wife and suffer her to rule, then it may be there shall be some outward quiet. The ground hereof is an ambitious and proud humor in women, who must needs rule, or else they think themselves slaves. But let them think, by the way, YouTube, that's just reading the document. There you go. But let them think as they list. Assuredly, herein they thwart God's ordinance, pervert the order of nature, deface the image of Christ, overthrow the ground of all duty, hinder the good of the family, become an ill pattern to children and servants, lay themselves open to Satan, and incur many other mischiefs which cannot but follow upon the violating of this main duty of obedience, which if it be not performed, how can other duties be expected? Wow.
Okay, this is a
So,
parallel point. I want to bring it up here. Okay,
okay.
I listen to a lot of stuff on YouTube. Father Ripperger is a favorite of mine. Catholic priest, exorcist. I think he does exclusively the Latin Mass, but he's just wicked smart. Very smart, I should say. Not wicked smart. Very smart. And he said, when a wife or a woman goes into rebellion, she can practice no other virtue.
Correct.
This seems to be saying the same thing. When a woman does not, a woman who does not respect the hierarchy shall respect to her husband is in rebellion. And you can expect that woman to show no other virtue. And I mean this literally. Watch for it.
Correct. Correct. He says it right here. Which can, and he says, upon the violating this main duty of obedience, which if it not be performed, how can other duties be expected? Exactly. What were you going to say, Steve?
Well, I mean, she's just going to be vicious. She's going to tell lies. She's going to cheat. She's going to steal. She's going to perjure herself. Once she's in rebellion, you damn well better expect the absolute worst behavior from her. There will be no morality. There will be no principles held. She will practice every vile thing, calumny, throw you under the bus, tell lies, hide facts. You may not believe me, but if you're in this situation, you will experience it, and then you will believe me.
And this is why another red pill wisdom is what? Do not marry single women, because chances are a lot of them did this. They would not yield subjection, they would not yield obedience. And therefore, how can you expect any good from a woman that will not obey you? And you see the results of the single mommies. He gives some of this with, parallel this. They thwart God's ordinance, pervert their order of nature, deface the image of Christ, overthrow the ground of all duty, hinder the good of the family, become an ill pattern to children and servants, lay themselves open to Satan, and incur many other mischiefs which cannot follow upon the violating this main duty of obedience, which if not be performed, how can other duties be expected? These are a lot of your single mommies out there and a lot of your so-called Christian wives.
Oh, Nick, are you sure?
Yes.
All those single mommies that I met told me that they were married to a narcissistic, bad man.
Of course.
And that's why they got divorced. But you know what? I'm a nice guy. I'm not like those other men. I'm so much better. I'm so much more Christian. I'm going to love you so much that I will show you what a real man is like. And you won't do that to me.
Steve?
Look,
What?
It's very simple. A woman, once proven to be rebellious, is therefore always rebellious. Guys, I'm sorry. I know you want to be the one who think you're going to tame this shrew. You're not.
the taming of the shrew, quite literally.
Right. And here's the thing. A lot of guys today have taken this to mean that, well, if you say you're not going to, if you can't tame the shrew, well, then it's just that you weren't man enough, that you weren't alpha enough. The entire Christ pill movement was born, raised, and died on that particular belief. Okay. This idea that if a woman rebelled, it was because you weren't man enough. No, a true alpha looks at that contentious woman over there and goes, I will have nothing to do with you, whore, be gone. Right? That is true masculinity. That is true alphaness. Does that mean that we will have oceans and acres and fields and star systems full of single mothers who die alone? Yes, it does. But guys, you cannot save the whore. And she is the whore. She needs to spend the rest of her life in penance, and that's it. Don't marry the fucking whore.
Right.
Hey,
Don't be the effeminate and beta milksop. Says, but if he be a milksop and barely yielded to his wife and suffer her to rule, then it may be there shall be some outward quiet. Hey guys, I did that for a time, and then I just I have to stop. Like, I can't deal with this crap anymore. Like, this is what they say: happy wife, happy life. Just be gentle. Never just lead her gently. Don't assert your authority.
I just thought of something funny. I'm laughing at what came up in my own mind. The Christ Pill movement. It entered Jerusalem with great fanfare. And then about a week later, it got crucified. But you know what? 3 days later, 3 years later, it never experienced a resurrection.
Steve. Oh, Steve.
I think therefore the Christ Pill movement was a false god. Doesn't mean Christianity is false. Just means that whole concept of the Christ Pill. No, if it was true, it wouldn't have died and not been resurrected. And it's gone. I'm sorry, it's gone.
It is. Oh, Steve, you're right. And I'm going to make this comment again. This milksop who he mostly yields in his wife is the guys that have given up. They have a contentious woman. It's like, you know what? I just want quiet. So they're just going to keep. It's the betazization. You could call this the betazization by 1,000 concessions. Okay. Okay. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. Yes, wife. I'll do what you say. Please don't yell at me. I want quiet in my house. I'll just do what you want. But also, for the few, like I did at the beginning and I did at the end. If a husband be a man of courage, this is also goes on in the church. The second one is the more common. The first one gets thrown under the bus by the counselors and the elders and the pastors. If a husband be a man of courage and seek to stand upon his right and maintain his authority by requiring obedience of his wife, strange it is to behold what an hurly-burly she will make in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's going to have a fit.
Yes.
And she will double down. She will call out all the troops. She will talk behind his back. She will be obstinate. She will do underhanded things. She will clean out the bank account and do, hide money. She will plan for how she's going to do things. She will call the police on him. Oh, okay. Hurly burly. Yes, that includes a lot of behavior. Right, Nick?
Back then it did, but today, without the restraints and men assumed to be these evil, misogynistic, evil people just by default, yeah, they can make a real hurly-burly. Even worse than they did back in 1622 by a lot of those things you mentioned, Steve. Yeah. So, guys,
this stuff happens.
This was 1622, guys. I don't know what the church forgot, but the red pill's been talking about it.
Did the church forget, or was the church encouraged to ignore?
Both. Their sons, but those who ignored it, their sons never knew about it.
Correct. Yes. If you collectively ignore the lessons of the past, the lessons don't get pushed on to the future. And then the future has to pay the price of not knowing in blood. Yep. Same as it always was.
Right. So, guys, that's my presentation of William Gouge Part 2. Next time, if we're able, assuming there's no other topic that comes up in the meantime, we'll start at point 18 of wifely duties. You guys have any closing comments for our audience?
Oh my God. Once the horses are out of the barn, it takes a lot of work to get them back in.
Yeah. Clean up.
I'm gonna take it even further than Steve. Don't even bother trying to rescue those horses. They're gone. Close the door. Put a new horse in it.
No, I was not talking about now. I mean, I was speaking in general. Once you let things happen to get the church back on track. Let's say the church, metaphorically, is not guarding the barn doors. To get the church to actually lock the barn doors and raise a whole new group of horses, that in itself is a huge task. I mean, forget about the horses that already escaped.
Well, Steve, I look at this and people are going to call me a doomer and a black pill, but if you guys, you homeowners out there, have ever had to fight mold in a house, there comes a point where the house is so rotten that it's better to literally burn it down, use it as practice, bulldoze it, and start over. How much rot is there in the church right now? Or go ahead, Nick.
That's it. It's bad. It's everywhere. They didn't maintain what they should have maintained. So the solution to the problem is much more difficult than it would have been if they just maintained.
Right. Because My solution to the problem is burn it down and start over. But burning it down and starting over is the most possible work anyone could choose to take on. Now, I don't think that we will actually completely burn it down, as in church goes away and then we start from scratch. What I think will actually happen is a separate church as a separate institution called a church will be built alongside, and the old one will just kind of fade away. I don't think this happens within the next 15 years. I think this is a post 15 year, this is 15. This process will start then, 15 to 20 years from now. But people have largely men, we were talking about this last week, Steve, you were saying, oh, well, the church is saying, look at all these new young men coming to the church. And you were saying, yeah, just don't look at the number of how many people are leaving. Right.
Yeah. Right.
So I look at this.
Not exactly. I was speaking in general. The Novus Ordo, the typical Catholic church that everybody sees, 8 Catholics leave for every one that joins. Okay, that's the dying side of the Catholic Church. The growing side of the Catholic Church is the traditional Latin Mass side. That's growing great guns. What is a hierarchy doing? They are trying to repress that side.
Mm-hmm. Well, but Steve, that's exactly what I'm talking about. A new. Now you could say, oh, well, TLM isn't new. It's literally the old version. I would go, yes, but it's new to the people who are taking it on.
It is. And that's one of the things that's going to survive.
Yes.
The traditional side of the Catholic Church, the progressive side is going to fail. And I'll say the same thing about, well, pick it. Pick any Protestant side, whatever brand of Christianity. The progressive side is going to fail because they're running out of people. It's the traditional, the trad side. Now there's a lot we talk about trad LARPing, live action role play. There is a lot of that. But yet the truth is on the trad side. And there's a trad side in the Catholics, which will survive. There's a trad side in the Protestants, which will survive. And I think they're going to join forces.
That's going to be a prospect for much later. It would almost be like the end of the schism between Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism. If it were done, it would be something like that.
I don't know when. I don't know how. But when there's very few left of the traditional minded people, I think they're going to come together in some manner. I mean, God has a way to doing things that are way beyond my ability to fathom.
Well, and Steve, there's another thing I want to point out here. We talk about trad LARPing. There is an enormous amount of that going on in the church right now. The trad that Steve is talking about is not that. The TLM guys they're less so, although I'm sure Michael Knowles is a TLM guy and he's so far down the feminists' throats he might as well be spitting out their asses. And he doesn't even recognize it. So there's a lot of work to be done cleaning house here. And that's what I mean. As these new institutions are built, I think of guys like Pastor Joel Webben. Pastor Webben's church is exploding right now. Why? Because he offers a truth that looks uncomfortably like what the Bible actually says. Yes, the theology bros can disagree with him on this or that, but it's pretty hard to argue with the baseline of his stances versus what the Bible actually says. and look at the explosive growth he's getting at his church, in his online ministries, whatever, however you want to count it. On Twitter, I see him on Twitter. He's gotten really big really quick. Okay, because he comes to men and says, men, this is your birthright, the good parts and the bad parts, as we were talking about today, right? Do I like having to hold my wife accountable? No, I will. But that is part of my birthright to do so, and I will do so. So that kind of messaging, that's the messaging that is experiencing the most explosive growth. And the women all hate it. It's funny reading his comment section sometime, because the women in there.
No, not all the women hate it. The unclaimed women hate it.
Yes, Nick.
The feminist women hate it. The women who are well managed by their husbands love it.
Yeah, not many of those, but Wevin's building them, and we're trying to convince men out here to be this way too. We get a lot of hate for that.
So Plutarch, does Elena hate being under your authority?
Every hour of every day of every year.
But she would hate you all the more if she weren't, though. That's the thing.
Absolutely, she would.
That's not true. She bristles at it. She resists it, but she loves it too.
Genesis 3:16. It hasn't changed since the fall.
Okay, we got. I'm sure she's listening. Okay, we got to bring up a comment by her. We're gonna give her a chance. Oh, okay. It's not true. I love being under his authority. Okay.
Right. And now ask her how much time she spends chirping at me for being how much she doesn't.
That's immaterial. Okay.
The slings and arrows that
Here's
I
the
have
other
to
one.
suffer for her under
it's
my
also
authority.
a man's duty to restrain his wife. Under the current law, he's not allowed to fulfill his duty.
Yeah. Well,
she's having fun in the chat.
Oh yeah, she got some attention here.
Yeah, I know. She's going to be all happy now.
Hey, we all like Elena.
Oh, she could have a ball with that stuff about modesty and dress and apparel.
Nick, you bet every dollar you have that she is going to make sure that all of that gets clipped into shorts, standard clip. Oh no, that entire piece is going to be clipped as many possible ways as she can, because Nick, you spoke to the very core of her soul.
That's just William Gouge.
Yeah, see, there it is. Let's talk about it.
We've already done that.
She could talk endlessly about it. And forever. You could literally just rename her podcast the William Gouge Was Right podcast, and she would be good with it.
All right, guys. So I guess my closing statements would be, look, this is William Gouge. It was 1622. He talks about all these things that even the red pill talks about, but you will hear almost nothing from most of your churches, which is really interesting. And by the way, what he was saying in 1622 was nothing new in the history of Christianity. They talked about it for centuries, even in the early church, the medieval church even. And it was talked about even up until through the 19th century. It was really kind of the beginning of the 20th, really the middle of the 20th century, where this was all forgotten. And by the way, if I were to say this without William Gouge, to many of the pastors and all thing, I am a evil man. I am a hyper patriarchal, abusive, domineering, tyrannical, evil scumbag, whatever you want to call it. He's reflecting on nature. Gouge is reflecting on nature. He's consistently, if you noted, quoting and commentating on Holy Scripture. This is the tradition. This is faithful commentary. This is nature, natural law. This is the hierarchy and patriarchy which the church today hates. And he talks about the nature of many wives and many women, which the church will not agree with you. And if you bring it up, you will be silenced. Shame on you, pastors. Shame on you, elders. Conform back to the truth. Repent. I'm done.
I've said this before. When the church discards a truth, it doesn't go away. It comes up someplace else. Okay, so we're talking about William Gouge here. This truth was in the church, inside the church. Now it's not. Oh, who picked it up and brought it back up? Because, hey, there's a piece of truth on the ground. It's being discarded. Oh, we need to pick it up and talk about it. The red pill did. So you can either bring this truth back inside the church or leave it in the red pill world. And the red pill world is gaining a lot more young male followers than the church is. I hope you recover this truth and bring it back inside the church. Because I am not promising salvation or about leading people to Christ, young men to Christ. I'm just here. I need to tell them the truth. Because until they have the truth about male and female nature and know how to govern their lives, they're really not able to hear the message of the Christ's goodwill, the gospel, whether it be Lutheran, Catholic, other Protestants. You know what? You gotta ground people in the truth about male and female, and then show it within your religion.
Plutarch, any closing thoughts, statements?
No, I've said what I need to say already for closing.
All right. So, guys, if you like what you heard, please share it. Share it to all your elders. Share it to your pastors, your deacons, your church brothers. Share it to your red pill friends, even. Share it, even to those nasty feminists. Please do. We love hateful comments. And by the way, if you like what you heard, please put comments in the chat. Or after the thing's over in the comment section. We'd love to respond. We'll get to it when we can. We all have jobs. Please like, share, subscribe. Also, we're here every Wednesday at 7:45 Central. Do we have a topic for next week?
Yes. So I'm actually going to continue with the topic I did a couple weeks ago. Us versus. So the video was us versus the world, and I said at the end of that video that I felt like that there was a lot that we needed to discuss about what was going on right in the United States. So I'm going to call it us versus ourselves.
Okay.
All right.
So there you
Tune
go.
in next week to us versus themselves. Plutarch will be leading that at Wednesday at 7:45 Central. That's 5:45 Pacific, 8:45 Eastern. And join us on Saturday at Elena's Bars Fitness. There you go.
You got it in there.
At 11:15 a.m. Central. That's 9:15 a.m. Pacific and 12:15 p.m. Eastern. I don't know the topic, but please tune into Elena's Bars Fitness at 11:15 a.m. Central on Saturday. anything else, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining in. Have a good night.
Night.
There was a firefight! Son of a bitch!